Well, hey y'all, happy Monday. So today we're gonna talk about shade cloth because it's time to get shaded in the garden, and we're gonna have a quick little tour of the garden, and then the last thing that we're gonna talk about is different issues that you could have with tomatoes specifically, but maybe some other plants in the garden, maybe because of overwatering and what that might mean for the nutrients with your plants. So let's check it out. I'm melting. That's exactly what your plants are going to be saying by the end of this week if you don't put some type of shade in place for them. Because by the end of the week, we're going to be seeing temperatures in the 90-degree zone, and next week it's going to be in the 100s. Now, one lesson that I learned last year, because every year I learn something new, is that I've got to get my shade, whatever I'm using for shade, I've got to get my shade up by the time the temperatures get into the 90-degree zone. So, okay, see what a dramatic difference a little bit of shade cloth can make in your life. It's completely changed the lighting here. It's definitely not where the light and the sun is just beating down on my head, and it's actually a little comfortable to stand here in what would otherwise be a very sunny part of my yard right now to chat with you. Now, shade cloth is going to be the thing that seriously makes or breaks your garden this year, and there's something about that 90-degree range that is the signal to start putting your shade cloth up. There's something about that, besides the fact that it decreases the ability for most of our plants to pollinate. It's also just something about that that kicks in a lot of stressors for our plants. So what I just put up over us that really kind of changed the way this little area is here is a 40% shade cloth. Now you can get these in a 20%, in a 30%, and you can get them all the way up to 50%. I started out with 40 and I've been pretty happy with it. I'll tell you, if you went with something lighter like a 20 or a 30, that's okay, because you could always fold it back over itself and double that. Last year I also experimented with just using some old pieces of lace, and they work out just as well, especially in these 90-degree days. Now in the hundreds, once we're consistently in the triple digits, you definitely probably might want to shift over to something more in the 30 to 50% range for the shade cloth. So I'm going to show you here in just a second. I'm going to put up some different pieces of shade. I'm going to start out this year just with some of my sheer panels, and then as things, like I said, as things progress into the triple digits, then I'm going to move up to my 40% shade cloth. Now I got this shade cloth on Amazon, and the specific brand that makes this doesn't sell it anymore, but there's plenty of other shade cloths that you can find. Some of the Goodwills here in Arizona have opened up, and I think maybe even some of the Savers. So if you don't have some old lace shears and you don't want to invest in buying some shade cloth right now, that might fly off, then what you might want to do is go to one of the little thrift shops and make arrangements to get yourself some old lace sheer curtains, or you might find something around the house that is similar to this that would work out just as well for you. So now I'm going to show you what my little shade setup is going to look like, and I hope that this encourages you to get yourself some shade cloth so that you can have a happy garden all summer long. Now we've got just some real simple, inexpensive ways to shade our plants, and so this is going to give just a little bit of relief in the really hottest parts of the days. Gives just a little bit of shade and protection for those plants, and then again when we get over here under this 40% shade cloth, you can see that there's a great deal of shade that's provided, and the temperature, my son was just out here helping me hang these up, and he even remarked that the temperature underneath this 40% shade cloth is just, it's dramatic how different it is, and that's with the sun being right on top of us right now. So it's time to shade your garden. So that dango umbrella right there got gusted up by the wind and fell over here in my flowers. So almost everything that was there was just laying down. So I just cut all that out, and I think I might plant some medicinal stuff over here. I'm just not sure yet what my plan is, but we're gonna go in reverse today with the tour. And so this is where the flowers are at, and we've got lots of happy mustard greens coming up, and this is kale regrowing from the stumps that were left there, and the flowers are looking awesome. This pepper is just covered in flowers, and if you remember, this was a pepper plant that I cut back to just nothing over the winter, and so this is proof that this is a good thing to do for your peppers, and it's a way to keep them going for you. And if you remember, I also had 2 kale plants in here that I cut back, and so we've got kale regrowing on the sides there. Also over here we've got a lot of little baby ladybugs that have been laid and are over here enjoying all the aphids on the dill and the cilantro. The spinach is starting to go to flower, and I love when the romaine goes to flower. It makes a really pretty flower. So this is where this sweet little bed is, and I dumped some compost today. I'm happy to say, and this is going to be part of our little lesson today, is that my tomatoes are showing some good signs of improvement, and I got some awesome fertilizer that I'll chat more with you about soon. Some of these have got some pretty little tomatoes already going on, so we might be going good now with the tomatoes. I'm falling very much in love with this sweet potato bed. These awesome romaines are looking beautiful. The lettuce mixes are awesome, and in between we've got our little sweet potatoes going, and I have no idea where this volunteer tomato, that one, and that one, I have no idea where they came from. But for right now, we're letting everybody hang out and just enjoy their space over here in the little kiddie pool. It's starting to get warm for the nasturtia, so if you've got nasturtia and it's starting to die back, that's kind of why. But you can see that it goes to quickly making its seed. So this is the seed of the nasturtia, and if you just let it turn brown, either pick it or let them fall where they're at, and then next year you'll have more naturally come up, or you can save those seeds and replant them somewhere else. I've got some heavy work to do over here this week because so much of this has went to seed, and in the midst of that, there's so much that is ready to bloom also. So I'm hoping to come in here with the girls this week and really kind of do some deadheading to get it cleaned up, and also to save some of the seeds. But this is our big calendula patch right now. Y'all, I'm telling you what, these strawberries are a dream come true. We have found that if we let them, and this is the ever-bearing Albion is what this strawberry is called. This one right here is the only ever-bearing. The rest of them are all these Camarosas. So we haven't eaten any of the Camarosas yet. They've got a lot of flowers, but I can say for sure that this one that makes these huge strawberries, that if we let them turn red and wait about 2 days to pick them, they are so sweet. It's probably the sweetest strawberry we've ever had, and they're huge. I'll show you a picture right here of what one looks like in my hand right before we ate it. We're really having fun with the bales. Everything looks lush and beautiful. There's a lot of overplanting. There's beans, squashes, beans, cantaloupes coming in amongst each other. And then we did some new style of planting that my husband calls shotgun planting, where we just threw a ton of different seeds in here this past week, the girls and I. So it's going to be really fun to see what the next things are that pop up in here. Last week when we shot our video, we put these zucchinis in, and they just look phenomenal. So I could probably even take that off of there. But so far, we are really digging our straw bales. This bed also got some planting in it this week. A lot of stuff tucked in here, getting ready to go on the trellis. You can see that these scarlet runner beans are about to start climbing, and their seed packet said that they were a vigorous climber. So I think once they get going, it's going to be really fun to see what they do. So we've got some of our, it's funny, these little tiny breakfast radishes are pushing themselves up out of the compost. So I thought maybe they might get a little bit bigger if we left them in there, but they're literally pushing themselves up out of the bed. So we're gonna have to pick them soon, and then we'll plug something else in there. So everything's looking awesome over here. This one is even recovered in the past week from maybe getting a little too much water, and its pal over here is really just bushing out and looking phenomenal. So we're super happy with this and excited to start seeing the climb get on. Now you'll catch from our conversation that we have about tomato plants that we kind of sacrificed these two being kind of the worst ones that we had, but we didn't kill them off. What we did is we superseded these bags with lots of stuff that'll vine. So if the tomatoes make it, great. If they don't, they don't. But this gives a chance for more things to grow in this bag. And just a little glimpse of all the little edible flowers. So pretty. And I love these little Johnny jump ups. My husband caused these weeds, but I'm pretty sure that they are little tomatoes that are looking like they're doing pretty well in the transfer from just weird dirt to these cups. My herbs are pretty happy. Everything out here, I think it must have got too dry one day and just kind of died out, but the mustard greens are still pretty happy, even though it looks like something's munching the leaves. We replanted some okra seeds that we soaked, and so almost every single one of the okra buckets have come up now. Just kind of like the last two on the end might need some more seeds. We super seeded these bags also with things that will hopefully climb on the trellis. We've got cantaloupe coming in here, and lots of, those are some more loofah. And same thing over here, we've got some loofah coming in. That's cantaloupe and loofah there, and then we put tons and tons of different vining plant type seeds in there. And the sweet pretty little bed is looking happy, and this one little volunteer tomato over here is making little tomatoes. For so many of us that just got our garden growing, we might be looking around now and finding that a lot of our leaves look like this, and asking ourselves, what the heck is going on with my plant? Now, you've heard me talk more than once over the last couple weeks about the health of my tomato plants, and I'm just gonna pop off a little sickly leaf over here. So I planted these tomato plants directly into compost. I thought that was a great idea, and I don't think that it was necessarily a bad idea. But what we saw is that, first of all, in our desire to not let our plants get super dry, because fabric bags lose moisture really easily, like any container does, what we found ourselves doing is adding probably a little too much water. So this is probably the plant that looks the worst right now. This past week, I got to visit with Tony Serra. He's been a horticulturalist for over 38 years in the Valley. He lives down in Tucson. And I got the chance to meet him and actually have him in my backyard because I was buying some of his magic fertilizer. And so when Tony stopped by to give me the fertilizer, Tony reminded me that compost does an extremely good job of holding in moisture. So a couple of things were happening with my tomato plants. One, the compost was holding a lot of water, so we were overwatering, and at the same time, a lot of the woodier pieces that were in the compost were kind of pulling some nitrogen away from the plants, and because we were overwatering, it was keeping the plant from being able to uptake the proper amounts of phosphorus that it needed to grow. So if you've got plants right now that you planted in the last 2 weeks or in the last month, and all of a sudden you're like, what the heck, they're going yellow on me, it's probably because now is the time that they need some type of fertilizer in their life. Now, you want to be careful with really new plants because it's easy to burn them with too much nitrogen. That's why I really prefer to do something like a fish fertilizer, like the Alaskan fish emulsion, because it's really light. It's something that you can do every week to 10 days, whereas a formula like Tony's, it's really only something that you want to apply about once a month. So kind of be gentle with your garden as you get into using fertilizers, but also be aware of the fact that you're going to need to feed your plants, and water is not the only thing that feeds your plants. So watering also pushes a lot of the nutrients and fertilizers through the soil and out of the soil and onto your ground. So it's important to keep up with a regular schedule of fertilizing. Now, since I applied Tony's fertilizer, everything does look a lot better. We're definitely cutting back on our watering because you do want to let your tomatoes and your peppers dry out a little bit in between waterings. But right now is also a catch-22 with watering because everything is about to get a lot hotter. We're going into the 90-degree days, and then next week we're even going to see a week of triple digits, and then we're going to flip back into the 90s as we go into the month of May. So now is the time that you really want to get a water meter in your life. And if we would have been trusting our water meter, then maybe that, coupled with keeping up with boosting our nitrogen, maybe our tomatoes would be in a better position than they are right now. So those are my tips for you when it comes to yellowing plants. Think about how much water you're applying. Think about what nutrients they could be lacking and solve for those things first. So I hope this helped. I hope that everything is going good for you, and I look forward to chatting with you next time. Have a great day.